What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live here on a Monday night. Today, we're going to talk about NBA playoffs. It's going to be a little lighter stream than normal because we basically have no Blazer news. But the NBA playoffs underway. It's been a fun first round, and we're finally getting the conclusion to some series. We got some teams that have been eliminated, and we're going to talk about what we think that they need to do in the offseason. It might be blow it up. It might mean making a big swing. It might be minor adjustments, but we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss some team building stuff, which we always love to do. And we're also going to talk about tomorrow's slate of games, 3 games tomorrow, as well as preview our first second round series that's set in stone, which is a series I wanted to see, Eric. You got the Nuggets taking on the Timberwolves. I think that's going to be a fantastic series. And then at the end, we'll do Tankathon, take a couple questions, and that'll be the stream for today. Dropped a video earlier today in case you guys want to watch that at any point. It was going over analytics for the Blazers last year and what you can take away from them. I had fun making a thumbnail with Chauncey Billups in the middle with a bunch of terms like can't shoot, don't pass around him, because that was this past Blazer season, and that's why we're not playing right now. But anyway, Eric, before we jump into things, how's it going, man?
Not too bad. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Just watched the conclusion of the Nuggets and Lakers.
How's everyone in Chatland doing today? Hope all is well. And for the record, Rich had back surgery today, so just want to give a quick get well soon, Rich, to him. And on Rip City Retro, I posted something if you wanted to, in the community tab, if you want to leave a message for Rich to read. I'm sure he'd appreciate that.
Yep. Hopefully Rich is doing well after that surgery. I'm looking forward to getting him back on the content, hopefully in time for Joe Cronin's next press conference, which will be draft night, I guess, unless he makes a trade before then. But looking forward to, I always love Rich's Cronin breakdowns. I live for those things, so shout out to him. If you're not subscribed to Rip City Retro, go subscribe. Phenomenal content. But anyway, Eric, today, man, we got some things to get into, and I'm curious about a couple of things regarding a couple of the teams that we're going to talk about. I'm curious for your thoughts, and it's always fun to go into a stream like this because there's a couple of topics that we're going to talk about, and I don't know if we agree or not. And that's a fun thing, like there's shows like First Take, there's shows like, these national ESPN shows, and they go in and it seems like they plan their disagreements, right? They may not even believe in what they're saying, but they plan their disagreements. We go into this, I don't know where these conversations are going to go regarding the roster construction with a couple of these eliminated teams. So I'm really looking forward to get into that. But the first series we're going to talk about is not a series that is over yet, but it might as well be, right? The Celtics sweep the Heat in Miami, win games 3 and 4 after losing game 2 in Boston, and now they lead 3-1, Miami with no Jimmy Butler. Eric, is this series over?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think Miami's just happy they got a lead or a game in the series. Yeah, and I mean, Kristaps, we'll see how hurt he is. Didn't look good. Non-contact Achilles / lower calf injury, so that might hurt them. But the Heat just do not have enough firepower to beat Boston without Jimmy. And it's unfortunate because this would have been a really fun 8-1 series, I think, if Miami was healthy. But Boston's just too good, I think, for the Heat to make this a series.
Yeah, and, Spoelstra, in my opinion, best coach in the league right now. And on this channel, we've had debates regarding roster versus coaching. At a certain point, you're just so outmatched that even with the best coach in the league, it does not matter for Miami with no Jimmy Butler, and it's just brutal. It's just brutal. He's obviously the guy that makes that team go, and they just don't have enough offensively without him. There's other teams where maybe you could be missing a guy like that, but have enough scoring, like off the bench, a sixth-man caliber guy that can really light it up, a seventh-man caliber guy. But the Heat, what do they pride themselves on? Defense and culture and being able to grind out wins. The problem is when that's kind of your construction and your identity, when you lose a guy like Jimmy Butler, it's just you lose too much offensive punch and they can't replace that. It's tough to replace regardless if he was on any team in the league, but especially this one, they just don't have enough offensively. 88 points on the board against Boston. At home, not good whatsoever. And 88 isn't quite as bad as it might seem because scoring has been down in this playoffs, Eric. It's been fascinating to see some of these final scores. Getting to 100 in a lot of games is an accomplishment again, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if scoring in the 80s is necessarily cool or not, but definitely happening a lot.
No, but I do love the defense being brought back to the NBA game a little bit because it evaporated there for a while, man. I mean, scores early in this regular season were wild, 140, 150 points. So I've enjoyed the defense that's being played. I've enjoyed that the refs let them play in the playoffs. I wish the refs would let them play a little bit more in the regular season. But yeah, Miami's done. I think they lose in game 5 by like 25 points, and Boston will move on and take on the winner of the Magic and the Cavs, which is tied at 2-2, and we'll preview that game later on in the show. But the next series, this one is officially over, and it ended today. The Thunder, the young upstart OKC Thunder. I was wondering if their lack of playoff experience would bite them. And in game 1, it looked like this might be a series as the Pelicans had CJ McCollum miss a three-point shot that would have won New Orleans the game in OKC. So after game 1, Eric, I was thinking, this could be one of those series. But no, the Thunder sweep. The Thunder win both games in New Orleans. New Orleans, of course, without Zion Williamson. Unfortunately, injuries have played a major part in this year's playoffs. And we'll talk about more later on in the show, unfortunately. But no Zion, and the Pelicans get swept. They played their way into the 8th seed without Zion beating the Kings, but were no match for the Thunder. The Thunder now move on to take on the winner of the Clippers and Mavericks, which should be a great series because that is a more true test for the inexperienced Thunder team than the Pelicans were. But I just want to focus on the Pelicans. They are a little bit stale in a way, and you can't rely on Zion Williamson to be healthy, and they just don't have enough without Zion to win playoff games. And you saw that in this series, and they only put up 89 on the board, one more than the Heat did. And Zion, unfortunately, just cannot stay on the floor. So what does New Orleans do? Because they don't have another true star caliber player other than Zion, but they need one because you can't count on Zion to stay healthy. So it puts them in a conundrum. You got multiple good role players, good forwards, and some talent on that team. But Eric, what does the Pelicans need to do? Do they need to retool around Zion, kind of go on a mini rebuild because Zion's still young enough? Do they need to blow it up and trade Zion? Do they need to trade Brandon Ingram? Do they need to just try and get better? I mean, there's multiple ways they could go. What do you think they should do?
Well, before I answer that, let me just say, screw the Pelicans for making the play-in or the playoffs the 2 times we needed them not to, and screwed us both times. And then, at least last time they actually made it competitive in the first round.
But last time they really screwed us. This is one spot.
Yeah, this time they just kind of screwed us by, we wanted them to lose or win or lose again, and they won. And then they just don't freaking show up and get swept out of the playoffs. Come on, dude. Don't win. Don't beat the Kings if you're not going to show up in the playoffs, right?
Facts.
But as far as what they should do, I know Valanciunas is a free agent, so they have a big decision there. And then I think they got to break up Ingram and Zion. And I think trading Ingram is probably the right decision. I would be really tempted to trade Zion if I was them. Just so, I mean, I just don't think it's working, and just start over, clean slate. But I don't know, man. Watch him be healthy, like from now on, and like be dominant and stuff. Like I don't think you're gonna get fair value for him. So maybe the answer is just trade everyone, reset around Zion. He's still young enough to maybe do one more full rebuild around him, and then just try to bring in a better mix of players. I think we still have some players you can keep, like a Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. Maybe you try to get uh, someone who can handle the ball a little more passing oriented point guard than CJ is. They have a lot of picks and stuff to trade. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much of that stuff they give up and how much they lean into kind of a mini rebuild.
Yeah. If they rebuild, it almost makes sense to trade Zion too. But what is his trade value? Like he's a good problem to be stuck with in the terms of like he's really freaking good, and when he's healthy, that team looked good this season. But if your goal is to win playoff series, it's tough to expect him to be able to be on the floor. Mm-hmm. So what is their goal here with Zion? Like, is it ultimately to contend? Because if so, it's they need more around him. And even if he was healthy, I still don't think they're contenders. So how do you get to the point where you can get like a true number 2 star next to Zion that if he's hurt can maybe make that team competitive in the playoffs until he can get healthy? And the only way you do that is by shopping Ingram and shopping all the picks that they have. But what's going to be out there? Is Trae Young really that type of guy? And if so, you probably can't play Trae Young and CJ McCollum together defensively because that's absolutely brutal. So then you're looking at, maybe cashing in on Ingram with future picks to try and get a Trae Young, and then also trying to flip CJ McCollum somewhere else just because that fit is not good. The good news is if they shop Ingram is they have Trey Murphy, they have Herb Jones, they have 2 guys that can replace Ingram's production at the forward spot. Herb Jones more defender, Trey Murphy more of an offensive guy, but both those guys are 2-way forwards. They play both sides of the floor. So, is it something where it's like a Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion Williamson, shooting guard, small forward, power forward combination, and then maybe you move off Valanciunas and you go try and get a star point guard if he's out there? Is DeJounte Murray good enough? Like, that's the questions that they're going to have to answer this summer, because unless they get like a legitimate star caliber player to play next to Zion and to cover some of the slack when Zion's hurt, then it doesn't really make sense to not rebuild, because you can't keep going forward with this recipe. They haven't made any progress in the last 3 years. So I don't know, man. This feels like the type of team that, despite stagnating the past 3 years, just runs it back the same exact way next year. But if Ingram is available, it will be fascinating to watch that saga play out. And hopefully Portland doesn't get involved, because my gut feeling at this point, Eric, is if Ingram becomes available, Portland's going to be trying to pair Ingram and Grant and Ayton.
So who are they trading to get Ingram? Anthony?
Brogdon, Thibault, Rob Will, like Brogdon to a third team. Yeah, some weirdness like that. The Warriors pick, so you don't have to pay that. I feel like there's a way that they could maybe be in play for Ingram while saving money if it's a 3-team trade. And I don't know. That my gut feeling is that's going to be a legitimate attempt from Joe Cronin this offseason to get Ingram and save money somehow. It's going to be really, really tough, and I don't know if he's capable, but that's just what my gut says, is that there's going to be Ingram to Portland stuff.
I would rather them try to overpay for Trey Murphy.
Yeah. I don't know. I hate the idea of Ingram in Portland, not because he's not good, just because you're if you still have Grant, still have Ayton, you're paying three guys that aren't legitimate stars, aren't particularly good defenders, over $100 million a year combined, when your rebuild is supposedly based around your guards. It's just very counterintuitive for the Blazers to make that sort of play, but it seems like every offseason there's debates about like which guys not to go after, and I feel like that's going to be the name this offseason because I do expect New Orleans, if they are going to shake it up, I do expect it to be Brandon Ingram.
Do you think the Blazers are sitting there thinking we're good with Ayton, or would they explore trading him after he broke out? Because I was just thinking like Ayton for Ingram would kind of make sense for both teams maybe. But like,
yeah, in a way.
I don't know.
It still doesn't like solve the problem of like you need a second star in New Orleans, but I don't expect them to get that. So is that a fallback option? And then it allows you to start Herb and Trey Murphy at the 2 and 3 with CJ at the point and Ayton. Like maybe that roster is a little more balanced and they like that a little bit more. If the
I'm
Blazers,
not saying it makes sense for me. I don't want to do that. I'm just asking a question if the Blazers think it makes sense for them.
You know what though? It might make sense for the Blazers if they're picking like 4th and they fall in love with Donovan Clingan.
Yeah.
Like, if they draft Clingan, I could see them exploring something like that. And going with Clingan, Robert Williams III as their centers, and then, you can even play Duop Reith. Like, if you play Robert Williams 20 minutes, Clingan 20 minutes, you can give Reith 8 minutes as well at the center spot. You can play 3 centers, and Reith is your insurance policy. Of course, if they get Sarr as well, he can play center. So I think it just depends on what they get in the draft, because either they're going to get a wing or a big. And either way, it creates...
We think.
We hope. I mean, if they draft a guard, then even more so it creates a logjam, right? But like if they draft a center, you got Robert Williams, you got Ayton already. So you got a third center that you're taking with potentially a top 5 pick. Probably makes sense to move off one of the centers. And maybe that would be Ayton. But it just feels like this Ayton's like the guy to solidify Joe Cronin's legacy with the Dame trade. You know what I mean? So it just doesn't feel like something they would do to move off him. Especially after how he played second half of the year.
Right. I'm just wondering, like, if you gave them truth serum, if they would say that they're like, oh, good, he played well. Let's cut bait before he regresses back, or are they thinking, yeah, look at us, we traded for Ayton, look how good that looks now, especially with like someone we'll talk about in the next game,
This is why this offseason's fascinating. Like how do they approach this offseason? It's in previous off seasons, we thought they were going to approach it completely different, and then they lied. So now it's just up in the air in terms of, are they going to make that type of move to go after an Ingram, or are they going to be patient? He's a name to watch, though, because Cronin's talked about wanting to add players, and he's certainly a player, and he's certainly a name that a lot of Blazer fans would love to have in a Blazer uniform. And Anthony Simon's baby mama, she'd have both her baby daddies in Portland.
Oh, God. Yeah, we might have to.
Might be a convenient thing.
Yeah. So Zion's only 23.
Yeah.
Ingram's only 26. He'll be 27 before next season.
Yeah,
Zion will be 24.
You can go the young route. It's just... If you trade Ingram for, like, picks, you're basically saying we want to suck next year.
Mm-hmm.
So then, when Zion carries you to some wins, how do you handle that? You know what I mean? It's a little strange.
Although they
Oh, they could probably just say, we need to rest him because he always gets hurt. And then make up injuries and nobody will raise an eyebrow.
But if they have faith in Murphy and Jones, I don't know if that's necessarily conceding that they're going to suck next year.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the problem, though. Is like, how do you get somebody better than Ingram next to Zion? Because you need somebody better than Ingram next to him.
Yeah. Well, they do have a lot of draft capital to attach to go after someone.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. They either need to cash in on that, or they need to be patient and like rebuild a little bit, because those are Lakers picks. Those could be good picks, right? So it's strange because they've stagnated for 3 years, but trading Ingram and just being patient might also be the right play. You know, just starting Herb and Trey together, and Zion's still young enough that you can wait around for those Laker picks and hope they're good. And then if Zion gets hurt again next year, you know, maybe they're actually a legitimate lottery team and a good draft. It's like one of those teams where it's a tough position for a GM to be in, but also if you're a good GM, you could really make something happen, because it's not like they don't have assets or young players or talent.
If you're the Pelicans, do you decline the 17th pick from the Lakers and push that into 2025?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's the right play, and just hope that LeBron ages and Anthony Davis isn't as healthy as he was this year.
Yeah.
And they don't make a big splash trade, I guess.
Comment in chat says Bleacher Report had us trading Anthony Simons to the Magic for Anthony Black in 2025 first. I know Eric would hate that.
You'd like it? The first was Denver's 2025 first.
I wouldn't like that either. I don't think it's enough value, but like Anthony Black could. I always felt like you slept on him a little bit too much.
But Anthony Black with Scoot Henderson, I cannot think of a worse pairing in the background.
Yeah. Like I'm just thinking about it.
We want to give up our best shooting guard out of the three for someone that we probably question just as much as Scoot shooting the ball.
Well, it depends on how you view Scoot shooting the ball. Like he's 35% basically after he started donning the goggles and the contacts, right? Like after his 2 for 24 start. So can he come in and be like a 36-37% three-point shooter next year? That's optimistic, but if he can, then maybe it's not so bad. And then Anthony Black, I think, is a guy that can become an okay shooter. What did he shoot this year? I mean, he shot 39% from three.
Yeah, he shot pretty good. I don't think he shot many, though, right?
94 attempts.
That's like one a game.
Yeah, like it's free throw percentage was bad, 61%. So it's too small of a sample size to like really read into, but I don't know if he can't shoot. You know what I mean? And he's 6'7" and can handle and can pass and play some defense and is a decent athlete. If he can shoot, he's going to be a really, really good role player. The type of role player that I think winning teams would love to have. But trading Anthony Simons for that type of role player is just a little rough.
But much like Scoot, like I'd be willing to guess that a far majority of those 94 three-point attempts were wide open or kick out ones, catch and shoot.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be what you need him to hit? Like, if he's shooting 39% on open kickouts and they're still leaving him, then you just kick it out to him every time and you live with that. That's 1.17 points per shot. Like, that's efficient enough, right? To just at some point defenses would start adjusting to that if that's the rate he shot and they kept leaving him. At some point they would stop leaving him because that's a good enough percentage to make him pay. So it'd be interesting. But I don't like that for Ant. If they were willing to trade him for I mean, they're not willing to trade him for Brogdon, but like Brogdon in the 14th pick for Anthony Black, I would probably do.
That Anthony trade does solve our cap issue.
Yeah. But like Brogdon in 14, I would do in a heartbeat for Anthony Black.
I would give them Brogdon at this point for just the cap space.
Yeah, it's basically just 14 for Anthony Black, which he was a 6 pack last year, right? So, yeah, I guess that goes without saying. But we'll talk more Blazer trades in upcoming streams. Like, here's the thing: as teams like this get eliminated, it opens up trade talk discussions, like hypotheticals, like could they look to move off Ingram? So, as more and more of these series ends, it'll open up more trade talk for like what could the Blazers potentially do this offseason.
Would you want Orlando's pick this year? It's 18
For what?
for Brogdon.
Oh,
You
I'd
do
take that in a heartbeat. Yeah, absolutely.
18 for Brogdon.
And you save
We're doing-
money, and you save that $22 million, and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden you
yeah.
can go and sign an MLE guy? Yeah, like
Yeah.
MLE guy, if you want, plus a 18th pick, yeah, in a heartbeat. And that's the thing, is like if those were the trades on the table at the deadline, with like a first round pick in that range plus an expiring, absolutely should have taken it. The fact that we take it now so quickly shows you how ridiculous it was that people were acting like that was a terrible trade for the Blazers at the deadline, in expiring in a pick in this first round. Like, you can trade off the seconds. You can try and combine 18 with 14 to move up to like 9, and maybe Cody Williams is there at 9, and you get like Ron Holland and Cody Williams, or Sarr and Cody Williams, or whoever, right? Like, you can put that capital into play, and maybe teams don't bite, but it at least gives you like flexibility. So yeah, absolutely do that in a heartbeat. But Magic ain't doing that. I agree. Like maybe you could do like 34 plus something plus Brogdon for 18. But I don't think the Blazers do that, you know. So
What if we did 14 and Brogdon for 18?
that would be funny. That'd be funny because it was basically purely a capped up, you know. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about the Lakers' downfall. It's always a good day to smoke that Lakers pack, Eric. Right? And they get eliminated on another Jamal Murray game winner. He was questionable going into this game. They didn't even know if he was going to play. Not only does he play, but he also buries the Lakers in their grave with another game winner. Lakers had no timeouts left. Taurean Prince shot something from half court, tried to draw a foul, didn't get the call. And Denver, man, LA was up in this game. It looked like this could be going back to a game
LA
6
was up in every game.
in LA. This is literally like, other than the fact that the Lakers won a game, this is literally exactly like last year's series. Mm-hmm. Where they're super competitive, lead most of the series, and just can't win. Which is crazy because you got LeBron. Like, if there's anybody that knows how to win, right? It's the dude that has the most points in NBA history in 4 championships. But they just can't win in crunch time, which is crazy. Like, Jamal Murray's clutch. This, you know what's funny is, like, me and you both had this series going like 6 or 7 games, right? Like going a little longer, and it only went 5, but I thought this series would be competitive. And legitimately, if the Lakers could have just been a tad bit more clutch in the final couple of minutes in a couple of games, we'd be talking about this series being 3-2 in the Lakers' favor going back to LA for game 6. Like, legitimately, they played well enough to win this series, but they lost in 5.
Yeah, I was listening to some Lakers space is always a fun listen before we went on. And they kept going off about Jared Vanderbilt being available to play after game 3, I think. And you got people like Jamal Murray cooking you. Like, why aren't you trying to put a defensive specialist in the game to we know he had a little bit of he did stop Steph Curry, but a couple of the games he had some good moments guarding him and stuff like that. Like, why aren't you playing a guy that you paid a big extension to for defense? It's just funny.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, the role players have been a bit of an issue for couple years now, when they won that bubble championship, they had their best complement of role players. They had KCP. Now KCP is on the other side making plays. So
Josh Brown says 80 is soft. I don't think that this is the right game to say that about. Like he gutted through a play after he hurt his shoulder and couldn't even lift one of his arms. Like it was obviously very painful. So I don't think you can call him soft for playing the rest of this game with that injury.
Yeah. Now we get Minnesota and Denver. I truly think, Eric, Minnesota has a legitimate chance to win that series.
Oh, they for sure have a chance.
I kind of want to put it in the realm of 50-50.
I mean, the way Anthony Edwards is playing, I don't think that's crazy talk at all.
Just seeing the way the Lakers could stick with them, and you got Gobert. Like, I know Jokic historically has always played well against Gobert, but it's still Gobert, right? Like, it's pretty good option. It's more, he's bigger than Jokic, right? Like, if I had to think of three guys to guard Jokic in the league, I would probably come up with Embiid, Wemby, and Gobert. So that matchup, especially with the size too, like they're going to be able to put Jaden McDaniels on Jamal Murray. Jaden McDaniels just had a good defensive series for them. You got Nickeil Alexander-Walker off the bench, courtesy of Joe Cronin. And he can play some defense. So they have guys that they can throw against Jamal Murray to slow him down. You got the Gobert-Jokic matchup, and this team is playing with a lot of, like, fun. Like, this team is clicking. This team is confident, and I truly think that this is going to be a maybe the best series of the playoffs. And I think the winner of this series, I know I had the Mavs go into the finals, Eric, in my predictions before the playoffs. But at this point, I think the winner of this series makes the finals.
Yeah, it's not a bad prediction. And Minnesota has Luka Garza they can put on Jokic, so
yeah,
that's a huge advantage for them.
Yeah.
Right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Luka Garza, Iowa. Yeah.
No. Man. Okay, so Kobe had his moments where he obviously patterned his game a lot after Michael Jordan and looked like a Michael Jordan clone. But watching Anthony Edwards in this series, man, he's the first person I've seen have that just like you can't stop him. Like he's gonna get to the basket, or he's too strong. But he's also like quick and has finesse too, but like just uses his athleticism and power like so well and so much like Jordan. It's pretty crazy. Now I'm not saying he's as good as Jordan necessarily, but like he just like completely took over that series and was like willed his team to win, and it was just super impressive, man. It was crazy watching just how good he was. And I don't think it's something like he can't play that good. I mean, obviously he shot the ball well. It's probably not always going to be that high a percentage, but like, I don't see any reason why he can't like just sustain this and take a team on his back. And they have good defense as well. So they're really scary right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the Timberwolves being the Nuggets in the second round. I still believe in that pick. I think that, I don't know, man. I just feel like the Timberwolves are going to get them. And it's going to be, I had this feeling before the playoffs, it's going to be Anthony Edwards' coming out party, where he catapults himself into being argued as like a borderline top 5 player in the league. Where all of a sudden it's now Luka and Anthony Edwards debates, right? Like Edwards has been a tier below him, but he's coming. He's up next, and his confidence is unmatched and a big part of why he's as good as he is. And it's funny because Aiden says the Wolves are probably the best constructed roster in the league. We were roasting them for the Gobert trade because they just weren't as good defensively last year as we expected the Gobert trade to make them. But this year, I mean, the way they rotate, dude, it's not just Gobert, it's all 5 guys. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
They rotate really well. And a big part of why they got better is because they got Mike Conley. And we question, like, getting rid of D'Angelo Russell and bringing in Mike Conley, but Conley's just a smarter, better defender. And he knocks down threes. He's not as ball dominant, and he's a veteran presence that I think that team needed last year when they struggled. And, they traded for him at the deadline. Now they have him for a full season. And last year, you remember, they kind of fell apart late, right? The Jaden McDaniels getting hurt because he, like, punched something. And, I just think this team needed another year to grow, another year to mature. And now when you look at their roster, like, Edwards, Cat, Gobert, that's like a legitimate big three, but it's not like the Suns' big three who they just beat. It's a big three that is just better defensively. Like, Gobert just changes the calculation there. And it's not like you have 2 duplicate players like the Suns kind of do with Beal and Booker. And we're going to talk about the Suns in a second. And they're young, right? You got Anthony Edwards, he's getting better. Where KD, he's getting up there in age. The thing is, they got a bench. They got role players. Naz Reid, perfect big man off the bench.
Six
man of the year, right? Keeps them with size off the bench and can play the 4 or the 5, just like Cat. So you can play him next to Gobert. You can play him next to Cat. He can shoot, right? Possesses a lot of similar traits as Cat, obviously not at the same level, but perfect backup big for them. Monte Morris, just steady point guard off the bench. Alexander Walker's been phenomenal. Kyle Anderson, of course, veteran presence. Like, they just got guys that you can throw in a game and you know what they're going to give you, and it's a good roster. It's a good roster construction, and if the Blazers short-circuit their rebuild, I just hope they find a way to do it in the way that, like, Minnesota kind of did, where they went all in for Gobert, and it felt like maybe it was a little early, and then it looked bad for a year. But now look at them, right? The thing is, though, they got their guy, and it's Anthony Edwards. Portland is going to have to get their guy. Hopefully Shaedon Sharpe can become Anthony Edwards, but, I mean, it's... I don't know if they have that caliber of guy on their roster right now. So that's ingredient number 1, because without him, the Timberwolves aren't anything.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because Conley's in his mid-30s, so it'll be interesting to see how they replace him. Obviously, he's going to be aging quicker than the rest of the roster. And then you mentioned the rotations on defense. You got to give some of that credit to Chris Finch, who's just done a really good job coaching, and they seem to play like a well-coached team.
Yeah,
and definitely could tell in this series the difference between kind of a chaotic team that wasn't completely locked in and a team that knew their assignments, knew what to do, and just felt like they executed it really well.
Yeah. I mean, they're young guys. Like, Jaden McDaniels is still, he's been in the league for a few years now, but he's still young, right? Like, and he makes rotations. Like, it doesn't matter who they bring into the game, they make rotations. And it's just funny because you look at Portland and their vets, they don't rotate like that. That's the one thing with the Timberwolves is they rotate well out of mismatches. They double and rotate when there's a mismatch. They get out to the corner, run guys off the line, and fill in on the backside. And I just wish the Blazers could play defense like that because I've never seen them play defense like that. And it's not like they don't have pieces. Hopefully Kamara can be a Jaden McDaniels-esque type of player at the small forward spot. He's not as big, but he has the potential to be a similarly disruptive defender. Maybe not quite as much offensively, but the shot at the end of the year looked really good for Kamara. So, it's just all about getting in the right pieces and probably a different coach because I do not trust Chauncey to have any team, even if he was coaching the Timberwolves, rotating like the Timberwolves do defensively like Chris Finch has them doing.
Mm-hmm. And David Yu brings up the only kind of negative thing for the Timberwolves is is their roster sustainable financially?
Well,
Not
if
sure.
A-Rod buys the team, then maybe not, because supposedly they wanted to cut payroll.
Yeah, but Glenn Taylor's also been kind of frugal in the past, so like I don't know if he's just saying that to like try to save his reputation or not. But man, that roster's going to get pretty expensive fast.
Yeah. Rapid fire question before we move on. Was that LeBron's last game in a Laker uniform?
Ooh, hmm. I'm going to say no.
I'm also saying no. I think he's back next year, or even if his son gets drafted somewhere else.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of dug into LA. I don't think he wants to leave LA.
Yeah. The Bronny draft thing is going to be so fascinating to watch this summer, man. Like, which team drafts him thinking they can get LeBron, and then do they get LeBron? Because imagine a team drafting Bronny higher than they otherwise would have, because they're thinking they're going to get LeBron, and then LeBron stays in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little part of me that feels like that team might be Portland. Just a little part, that 34th pick. If he's there, man.
If I have to put money on it, I'm saying the Cavs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but where do the Cavs pick?
They pick, what, 20th.
Well, the Blazers have the 14th pick.
I could see the Cavs wasting the 20th pick to take Bronny.
Yeah.
And that's one place that I think LeBron might consider. I mean, just think about him going back to Cleveland to play with his son. Like, that would. And that team is probably a contender if they have LeBron. If they.
So you're telling me if the Blazers draft Bronny, LeBron ain't coming?
I don't know, man.
We got Nike headquarters up here, LeBron. You know, you can be the next Jordan.
Okay, I haven't read this part of the new CBA. How much of the franchise can we give to LeBron?
Yeah, I don't understand that at all.
If we have a succession plan for him to become the owner,
him and Phil Knight, his guy Phil Knight.
Yeah, if that's the plan, mate, I think that's the only way. Like, if he becomes full owner after he retires.
Could you imagine LeBron owning the Blazers, bro? Like, we're talking about maybe we can get free agents because Wait, but is LeBron actually gonna be capable of pitching free agents on Portland? Could you imagine those conversations? I don't know. This is a. Where are we going? Umar says so far Torrey has a feeling that we will trade for Ingram and draft Bronny. Safe to say this team has corrupted him with immense paranoia. Well, especially when my past paranoia is actually foresight, then it makes me even more paranoid. I was paranoid about Kevin Knox. I was paranoid about Chris Murray, and they both ended up Blazers. So, I don't know. My paranoia might just be my foresight. I'm not sure. But I could see this ownership group being like, man, fan investment is down 70%. Bronny's there. We got 4 picks. And drafting Bronny, hoping they can get LeBron so they can get fans invested again. But could you imagine dealing with Bron stands as we don't even make a play-in?
I know, as someone who's defended Bronny in the past, I would be dying waiting for that Joe Cronin press conference where he hypes up that they picked LeBron or Bronny because of his skill set, not because of LeBron. Like, this guy's like ready to play right away. Like,
yeah, wasn't ready to play for USC, but is ready to play for the Blazers. Yeah, I mean, my goodness, that would be something. I thought you were going to go. You know where I thought you were going with that? Because I brought up LeBron stands. I thought you were going to bring up, like, if we have Bronny and LeBron stands come to post-game shows, you know how much they're going to yell about Bronny in any DNP he gets,
Uh,
they're going to be in there like the way Melo stands were, screaming about how
I don't know.
Bronny should play. Bronny's better than Scoot. Bronny.
I don't think they'll do that.
They're
Unless
LeBron stands. Stands are crazy, man. So,
But
LeBron's son?
wait, do you say we had LeBron or no?
No, if we have LeBron and Bronny.
Okay, yeah, I don't think they care as long as we have LeBron and are winning. And
No,
I
but the
think
thing
they'll
is,
just
we
be
probably
happy as
wouldn't
long
be
as the team-
winning all enough games, and that's where that would go. Anyway, I love this fantasy, if you want to call it that. Maybe it's a nightmare. I'm not sure.
I just want to see what he says. This guy averaged like 2 points a game off the bench for USC.
Yeah. Oh man, dude, I'm so ready for this offseason. But you know who might not be ready for this offseason? The Suns.
Wait. Yeah.
That's my segue. But did you want to abort my segue?
No, go ahead.
So the Suns get swept by the Timberwolves. Their season ended last night. It's funny, they got
Pathetic.
KD, Beal, Booker. They had as many playoff wins as the Blazers this year. The problem is they went all in for KD and then somehow had enough chips left over to get a handout that was Bradley Beal. But that didn't really pan out. He did not play well last night in Game 4. And a lot of Suns fans are blaming him. But he has a no-trade clause. And maybe no trade value. So
And
what
he's
do
owed,
the...
over 160 million over the next 3 years.
Disgusting contract. What the hell can Phoenix even do to improve enough to take them to contender status? Because they have to go from getting swept in the first round to contenders. Do they have enough ammo to even make that a possibility?
I don't know if they have enough ammo, but I've been saying this since last offseason. They don't necessarily need a good point guard, but they needed someone who was dependable, just take some pressure off the ball handling duties and set up the offense. And they also needed a backup center because we know for many years here, you can't have Nurk be your only competent center on a roster. It just doesn't work, whether that's injury related or fatigue or just, games where he just doesn't have it. You need another center when you have Nurk. And they went into the season with Drew frickin' Eubanks as their only other center on their roster. I mean, it's I don't know what they were thinking. It's just a huge misstep. And then it came out today, allegedly Frank Vogel was begging them just any point guard at the deadline. Just get me some sort of true point guard. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't even have to be a good one. And they didn't want to take touches away from Beal and Booker or whatever. It makes no sense.
That's the front office meddling with the coaching staff to a point that is detrimental to the team.
Yeah.
Like he's seen this experiment all season long up to the trade deadline. And if he's telling you it's not working, he needs this, and you just say, nope, we got to put the ball in their hands. Well, how did that work out for him? So maybe they'll listen to him, or maybe he'll just be the fall guy and they'll just fire him, even though it's probably a lot of their own fault.
Yeah, and so like Aramitzer says, nope, you get Royce O'Neal. And David Roddy, did he even play in this playoff series? I don't think he did.
No, but he was never going to help him.
What the heck was the point of trading for two wings when that was like your least thing you needed? You have Beal, Booker, KD. They're on the wings. Like, you need big men and point guard help. Like, go out and get a Javon Carter and Andre Drummond or something from from Chicago. It doesn't have to be. Freaking Boston got Xavier Tillman for cheap. Just get someone,
Yeah. I hopped on Gabe's stream last night for a little bit, and I said the Suns have 5 issues, and Hold on, I gotta plug in my phone. The Suns have 5 issues, and 2 of them are like coaching related, and that is like their half court offense didn't have enough creativity to not have a point guard. Like if you're just going to run out that lineup, like your half court offense has to have more creativity. You have to move players better. You have to give players advantages. You can't just give KD the ball and let him ISO all the time. Give Beal and Booker the ball and let him ISO all the time, right? I thought their half-court offense was just very simple and easy to defend, so they run up against the Timberwolves defense, and all of a sudden, they get swept. And the other one was just, like, defensively, I mean, they took games off defensively this year. We saw it in a game against the Blazers in Portland. He just didn't get the level of buy-in defensively that I thought Vogel would get. But the 3 roster problems I said were the point guard, the center depth, the backup center. Yeah. And the third problem I think they have, Eric, is they need a big forward that can defend.
Yeah.
Because all their wings / forwards aren't guys that can defend the perimeter or are a little too small to have like the level of impact you need them to have, right? Like Royce O'Neal is 6'4". They're playing Eric Gordon, Grayson Allen, a lot of minutes.
Kind of undersized.
Okogie's kind of undersized, 6'4", 6'5". And then KD has size, but he's more of like a in the paint, like help side defender. That's where he's best at. He's not somebody you want guarding like Anthony Edwards out on the perimeter, right? So they were missing that as well. And it's funny because when I told Gabe that, I then came to the realization that they did have that guy on the roster in August and September, and then they traded him to Portland.
To Monty Kamara.
Yeah. If they had him, he could have been their big forward that can defend multiple positions. He could have been huge for him in that regard. So that's the problem, is they don't have enough ammo. Like, they're going to have to hit a home run with their 22nd pick for one of those. I think they can sign a minimum backup center that's better than Drew Eubanks, so I think that's how they address that. But that 22nd pick, it's like, you probably got to get a point guard. I wouldn't hate Tyler Kolek there for them. I would be praying for Devin Carter for them.
Yeah, if they get Devin Carter there, that's huge.
Yeah. That is clearly, like, I've been saying that for months now. That is clearly the guy that they need. I just don't know how they'd get that, like, big forward that can defend because they have nothing left.
No. I mean, I don't think Collier's going to slip that far.
No, I don't think so either.
Trying to think who else they can get. I mean, that's a good spot for. I think Kolek's that's a good spot for Kolek. I think KJ Simpson, that's a good spot for too.
Yeah.
But
if they're gonna take
that's probably
KJ
too
Simpson,
high at 22. Yeah,
I would rather
trade
down so you can get another asset. So then maybe you can just have a little bit more ammo because they need to make the most out of every single asset they have, which is basically just the 22nd pick. They need to get every drop of value out of that pick. So if it's a trade down and then you take KJ Simpson and he plays right away, like, cool. Tristan Newton, Eric, I don't think would be a terrible guy for them, but would maybe be somebody to trade down for as well. The thing is, there's enough point guards where you could trade down for a guy and play him right away. But if they do take someone at 22nd, you're hoping to get a home run because that's what they need. If they can get like a Jaime Jaquez level contributor somehow with that pick, then maybe they're okay. But oh man, it's gonna be really, really tough for them, and they just can't keep going for minimum wings and point guard.
Yeah. You can trace this back to 2 things, I think. One is passing on Halliburton.
Yep.
In the draft.
Yep. When I was begging for them to take Halliburton for their own sake.
Otherwise, they would have been set at point guard.
Dude, yeah.
And then, not last offseason, so it would have been two off seasons ago, when DeAndre Ayton was a free agent and all pissed off. He was sitting out there rumored for Indiana for weeks, and the Suns could have traded with Indiana, probably gotten Miles Turner, but they were afraid of paying Turner.
Yeah.
And
So they paid Ayton.
so they paid Ayton instead, who was younger, I guess, and less injury prone technically. But that decision, so then Indiana gets pissed and then just signs him to the offer sheet. And once you sign him to an offer sheet, then you can't sign and trade anymore. But they should have, if they were going to just give Ayton away a year later, they should have just signed and traded him that offseason, and they should have been more open to those kind of moves. And I think Miles Turner would have been really good for them.
What's funny about the Ayton trade they ultimately ended up doing is Grayson Allen was good for them this year, but he wasn't the right throw-in piece. He's too duplicative of Booker and Beal and Eric Gordon.
But yeah, but why? And then they trade for Royce O'Neal and Roddy White. Or David Roddy. I keep saying Roddy White. I did that on Crushables too. On Hoop Scratch, I mean. But they keep mixing those wings, and then they had too many of them, and none of them could get a rhythm, and no one had set roles because they played sometimes and didn't, and then of course Grayson gets hurt in this series, which was probably a huge factor.
Yeah.
But they needed a ball handler type, and I mean they signed Grayson to an extension, so he's going to be there. So I don't know, man.
It's rough, man. Shout out to Baby Malo, left a donation earlier. Thank you, Baby Malo. $5 donation says, need Ish back. Ish Wainwright. I thought Ish went back to the Suns already. But that's another thick, undersized, small forward defender.
Yeah.
They love that archetype. Did they just do Oklahoma drills with Ish Wainwright and David Roddy in practice? That's funny. But thank you, Malo. Or Ish Smith. Dude, Ish Smith could have maybe helped them this year. The thing is, they go out and sign the one veteran point guard that, legitimately would not help them on the floor at all. Why? Isaiah Thomas, bro. Right. That's the guy. He's always kind of been a combo guard scoring type of guy. He's just 5'9", so he's a point guard. But he's never been, a legit point guard in terms of setting up teammates, setting up the floor, etc. And he's 5'9" and awful defensively and old and doesn't shoot the three ball well anymore. Why is that the guy? And it was just so funny seeing Suns fans beg for him to play as if that would have changed anything, and beg for Bull to play as if that would have changed anything. And the Suns are in a tough spot, man. I feel kind of bad for the Suns fans that weren't delusional going into the series, because there's a lot of them that were oh, the Timberwolves can't beat us. There's some Suns fans that are entitled because you get KD, you get Beal, right, and maybe needed to be humbled a little bit. There's some cool Suns fans out there. I feel bad for the cool ones, because having the expectations that go with having a full year of KD, you got Bradley Beal, all the excitement that goes into that, and then not winning a single playoff game is rough. That's something the Blazers would freaking do.
Yeah. And I think James Jones, man, I don't see him get enough heat. He made one really good move.
Yeah.
To bring in Chris Paul.
Yeah.
And Chris Paul has given every team he's gone to the Chris Paul bump. Mm-hmm. So they go to the finals or whatever. And then, what has he done since then?
Yeah, Ishbia basically made the KD trade. Beal was a handout on a silver platter because he had a no-trade clause and forced his way to Phoenix. every other move has been questionable in terms of filling out the roster. The Ayton trade is questionable. Like, Ayton supposedly wanted out or whatever, but how he handled the Ayton thing is questionable. I don't think he's a good GM, Eric.
Yeah, I don't know. Yep.
It's going to be fascinating. It's fascinating because you got teams like the Lakers, teams like the Suns eliminated, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do this year because the clock is ticking.
Sorry, I know 38-year-old CP3 or however old he is now didn't give the Warriors a boost, but I mean,
maybe that's the guy the Suns bring in on a minimum contract. They bring him back in free agency.
Chris Paul, yeah.
They need the other thing they need is they need locker room leadership. They have no locker room leadership.
Well, part of the problem is they are, I think, $5 or $6 million into the second tax,
and they paid Grayson Allen a bag,
and that's only with 7 players.
Why did they pay Grayson Allen so much money?
I mean, he had a really good season.
Yeah, but dude, like,
league in 3-point shooting and all that. But yeah,
new CBA rough.
Yeah.
So,
but they're
what's the
they're
rule?
not going to be able to
sign minimum guys, right?
They can only sign their draft picks and minimum contracts this summer.
Yeah, so Chris Paul would have to come on a minimum.
Yeah.
Tough.
I think you could maybe get that, but I don't know if he has like ill will for them trading him last season, making him the scapegoat or whatever. But
yeah, that's the problem. It will be fun to see what the Suns do. Luckily, they have a first-round pick this year, because if they didn't have that, then, oh my goodness. So they got to, whether it's trade or draft, and it's probably draft. They probably have to draft with that pick, because I don't think a trade's going to make enough sense for the, trading Nas for somebody that makes less than him, because that's what they have to do. In the 22nd pick, you're probably not going to get something back that's worthwhile enough to trade it, so it's probably draft. They're going to have to draft somebody that's ready to help them right away. It's kind of a weird position for a team built the way they are to be in this offseason. So
I do want to say something about Matt Ishbia.
Yeah.
I don't get it, man. Everyone loves him when he goes all in, but hates him that it didn't work out. Like,
hindsight bias, yeah.
I mean, I know their future was screwed or whatever, but it was screwed the minute they made the KD trade. So like,
and every Suns fan loved it when they made the KD trade. So,
I mean, there were a few who liked McHale and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they might have been better off staying, but
it's funny because I went back and watched the Suns Valley podcast stream from when they traded for Beal, and I was like, my guy Gabe was like, finals, and then I was telling him to pump his brakes. He's like, oh, well, I brought it back to just the conference finals, right? Like, that's what he was talking about right after they make that trade, and then it's not even win a game in the first round. And I was telling him, like, I was listening back to what I said because I didn't remember. It's pretty spot on. Like, you got defensive issues. You don't have a point guard. That's going to be a problem. You got Booker and Beal on the wings. Like, defensively, that's going to be a problem. So, yeah, it's just funny to see the way that it did end up ultimately playing out.
Yeah, the Beal trade's weird because they weren't going to get anyone better with what they gave up. But it's now like hamstringing them too. So I don't know.
You have to make the Beal trade. Yeah, I mean, if they had Chris Paul instead of Beal, I don't think they make it out of the first round this year. The difference between them getting swept and making it out of the first round against the Timberwolves was not Beal versus Paul. Like, I don't even know if they would have been any better with Chris Paul. Now maybe you can have Beal and Chris Paul if you can somehow convince them to come back on a minimum. I mean, that's the pipe dream for the Suns this offseason, which is kind of sad because of how old Chris Paul is. That's your, like, number one dream to hopefully fix this. Because I can't think of anything better that's...
Or, like, Kyle Lowry or something. I don't know.
It's brutal. It's brutal. But tomorrow there are 3 games, Eric, still. And they're all interesting for their own reasons. Sixers, Knicks. Knicks up 3-1. This would be a mighty disappointment for the Sixers if they lose Game 5 and lose in 5 games. And that's another team that has been around, been in the playoffs for years, but can't get over the hump. They can't even make it to the Eastern Conference Finals with Embiid. Statistically, I heard this, like, in this series, they were like a plus 30-something with Embiid on the floor. Mm-hmm. In the 30, I'm like trying to recall this. I believe it was in the 31 minutes Embiid's off the floor, they're a minus 37, which is horrible.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is after tonight because obviously the Heat lost it in, but Bam had a positive that same scenario. Like they were positive. He was off the floor for like 27 minutes, and they were getting like absolutely blown out in those minutes. So
gotta have a good backup center, man.
Yeah, it's just so weird because they absolutely choked Game 2, up 5 with like 34 seconds left. And the next 2 games, like I mean, they get Game 3. Game 4 could have gone either way. It's another one of those teams that just could not score for a long stretch, and it's just tough to win games that way. And
I think what this playoffs might be exposing more than anything is you need multiple guys that can consistently get you buckets.
Yeah,
because that's the Sixers' problem. That's the Heat's problem right now with no Jimmy Butler. It's like you got Tyler Hero, and then who else are you counting on to regularly create shots on that entire team? Bam, your center? Like, you don't have enough shot creation there. You look at, Phoenix is a little different because they have 3 shot creators. They got other issues, but yeah, it's a problem, and you got to have multiple guys that can create shots and break down the defense off the dribble, especially in the playoffs when teams are going to try and cut off the head of the snake, take away the number one option. Or in Embiid's case, he's had good games, and it still doesn't matter because when he's off the floor, they suck because they don't have enough shot creation. They're just way too reliant upon playing through him, and we've seen that before as Blazer fans when the Blazers were way too reliant upon playing through Dame.
Well, unfortunately, Embiid's not healthy either. That doesn't help. But see, the Sixers are in a weird position though because they can absolutely rebuild or like retool this thing, really easily this summer with their cap space situation. And I mean, Buddy Hield's been disgustingly bad. Tobias Harris has been a no-show. So
Tobias sucks, dude.
I thought, though, like, obviously neither of those guys are worth the contracts they currently have. But I thought, going into this offseason, you can maybe sign them for cheaper.
Yeah.
No, dude, just get rid of those guys.
Yeah.
Go big game hunting. Like, yeah, just if you don't do it in free agency. I mean, I'm going all out for Paul George. I think if they have Paul George with Maxey and Embiid, and they're healthy into the playoffs, they're probably better than Boston then. But
I don't know if I go that far, but they're good enough to beat Boston.
Yeah,
they'd
also have money to make other moves possibly too. Yeah.
Is Paul George going to leave the Clippers though? Because he's from there. He's from Cali. If they lose in the first round, maybe. If they make, I mean, you got the Kawhi thing. Harden. They got James Harden. Yeah. Oh man, the Clippers. They don't actually play tomorrow. They play Wednesday against the Mavs, and that series is tied at 2-2. So the 2 series that you have right now that are tied 2-2 are the 4-5 series: Magic Cavs, Dallas Clippers, the Magic or Cavs are going to have to play Boston. So, like, does this series even matter? Because I don't think either team is capable of beating Boston, right?
It's like the Cavs Knicks series last year, right?
Yeah. But I do think both these teams, right? Because the Cavs, with this iteration, have not won a series, and then the Magic are, like, brand new on the scene. I do think it would mean something to either one of these franchises to win this series, even if they get smoked in the second round. Just because,
for sure.
It's not like it's the Lakers or something, or the Suns where, like, winning a series, that's not your ultimate goal. They can't even do that. But that's the most intriguing game tomorrow, I think, because the Cavs blew out the Magic in both games in Cleveland, and then the Magic blew out the Cavs in both games in Orlando. So can Orlando keep it close, coming off back-to-back statement wins? Can they finally keep it close in Cleveland this time? Because they're going to have to win a game in Cleveland, and if you just watch the first two games, you would think that that's impossible for them.
Yeah. But if you watch the last two games, you would think this Cleveland team sucks, too.
Orlando, man, remember after game 2, Orlando was like plus 700 to win the series. That's, if any of you got in on that, that's a pretty good line, man. And then you got Pacers Bucks. I mean, is Dame... He's not playing, right? Like, that series
both
is
him
done.
and Giannis are doubtful. It looks like neither of them are even close to being ready to play. So, yeah, fortunately.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it sucks that Dame got hurt, man. Even if Dame didn't get hurt, I think Milwaukee was going to have trouble winning the series. I picked the Pacers. I was the only one to pick the Pacers. Like, they need both those guys. This is another team, Eric, without enough shot creation. Basically, it was just Dame and Middleton, and who else do you have that can create a shot? Bobby Portis a little bit, but he's a big.
But, I mean, if they have Giannis, that's 3.
Yeah, but still, man, like, a lot of these teams only have, like, 2 or 3 guys that can create off the dribble. Like, Phoenix, I think, is in that category as well. I mean, Grayson Allen, I guess, can create a little bit, but a lot of these teams are very limited in terms of how many guys they have that can create off the dribble. You know what's funny? Is you can make the argument that the Blazers have 4 guys that can create off the dribble. Although, Scoot, if he was on a playoff team, we would not put him in that conversation, so never mind. Well, no, you got Brogdon. You got Brogdon. Yeah, Brogdon, Sharp, Ant, Grant.
And 2 of those guys we should trade this summer to teams that need those kind of things.
The thing is, with these teams struggling with not having enough shot creation, hopefully it raises the market for a guy like Grant and a guy like Brogdon. Hopefully the Blazers actually explore that market.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. But those are tomorrow's games. We'll take a couple questions before we wrap up the show, if you guys have any. Let's do Tankathon real quick.
Yes.
You guys know the odds. I'll simulate it, scroll down, scroll up like we normally do. I think it's simulated, it lagged a little bit. All right, at 14, it's Portland. At 13, Sacramento. At 12, OKC. At 11, Chicago. 10, Atlanta. 9, Houston. 8, Utah. 7, Memphis. Maybe it didn't roll. At 6 is... Oh, yeah, I did. Charlotte at 6, which means Portland is top 4. And that means you got one of Washington or Detroit at 5. Who's it going to be? We're back to Detroit at 5. Detroit's been top 4 a lot recently. We're back to how it should be.
So it's just us, Washington, San Antonio, and Toronto?
Yep. At 4 is your Portland Trail Blazers. Bummer. At 3 is Washington. At 2 is San Antonio. And at 1 is Toronto. You remember earlier when I said, like, clinging at 4?
Yeah.
Look, we got 4th, Eric. San Antonio at 2 would be interesting because I don't know what they do. Washington could be a team that goes clinging, I guess. If we're picking like top 5 or even top 6, right? which we're basically destined to, my biggest worries are Klingon or Ricochet. Anybody else we'd realistically draft, which doesn't include Topic because he's a guard, anybody else we'd realistically draft, I am okay with in that range, that are mocked in that range. Buzelis, Holland, Sarr, Cody Williams, even Stephon Castle. Like, any of those guys, I'm cool with, Eric. But I just... Well, he's a guard. So assuming we don't take a guard. If we take another guard, then that's just funny. And it's like, okay, Cronin, how are you going to... Do you just hate Chauncey? Like, and just want him to have a hell of a time figuring out who to play and how to play him? I don't know. So that's the... I'm just worried about Klingon or Ricochet, man. I still have a gut feeling that Ricochet is going to be a Blazer, and it's not going to be a good thing.
Yeah. So, let me ask you a question. If we draft Klingon, but it means we have a trade lined up for Ayton, are you more okay with that?
If we draft Klingon at like 4?
Yeah.
I still don't like it. I think it's too high for him regardless, but I'm not, I don't know. Like, Ayton played good. I'm still just not sold on Ayton. So if it's a good trade with Ayton that we do because we take Klingon at 4, then maybe it'd be all right, yeah. Just depends on what that trade is.
My Brandon Ingram.
Would I flip Ayton for Ingram to take Klingon at 4? I still wouldn't be the biggest fan of that, but there's worse things that we could do. I don't like that, but there's worse things we could do. And that's kind of how I'm gauging things. If there's worse things that we can do, then I guess I don't hate it because that's where the bar is.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully Klingon can be Gobert. But I want Sarr, man. We just need the first pick. But if we get the first pick, I don't know. Are we actually taking him?
You know how sad that would be. You're just negative.
Yeah, we take Ricochet number 1, and people say you're just negative, and it's like, no, I've literally set the tone for the draft for multiple months, saying I don't like Ricochet as a top 10 pick. The thing is there's more people that are agreeing with that. It's just funny how, like, consensus trends towards what we believe, Eric.
I saw a mock today that had Ricochet going 12th.
Rafael Barlow's brother, I forget his name, did a Locked On mock draft and had Ricochet 11th. And also had Jalen Tyson 13th. I felt very validated. And then he had us taking Tyler Smith. James Barlow, yeah, that's his name. Had Jalen Tyson 13th, Jameer Watkins first round. Yeah. Jameer Watkins and Jalen Tyson are my guys. It sucks because Jalen Tyson is no longer a second-round sleeper. But I've been telling people he's legit. And people were hating that I took him with the... if you guys missed our mock draft on the last stream, people were hating this pick at 14. But I don't know, man. People are sleeping on him, bro. 6'7", strong, decent athlete, can defend, has some craftiness to his ball handling, can pass, can read the defense, can hit threes off the dribble. Like, what part of that is not a borderline lottery prospect in this draft? I don't know. If he was 6'10", he might be the number 1 pick if Ricochet's getting that sort of love.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, this was our mock. Maybe we gotta do one of these with trades. That would be kind of fun, right? So if our pick's up, we can propose a trade, but then the other person has to accept it from the other team's behalf.
Yeah.
That would take forever, though. That would take forever. Anyway, any questions you guys have, we'll answer quickly, though. Got like a couple minutes, and then we'll wrap up the stream. Ricochet or Klingon at a top 5 pick? Who would you rather draft between the two of them, Eric?
Oh, God. Man. I'd probably just take Ricochet and hope his shot becomes more consistent.
I'd rather have Klingon.
I would say it if we didn't have Aiden, but
Well, we probably move off Aiden if we take Klingon, so give me Klingon.
well, I don't think that's the case. I think that's just our hope if we took Klingon.
Well, if we take Klingon and keep Aiden, then we can scream about how incompetent Joe Cronin is 2 years from now, and maybe more people will believe it by then. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have Klingon, because at least he could maybe change one side of the floor. Ricochet, I don't think changes either side of the floor. He's like, in my opinion, the most overrated, like, top 3 prospect that I've ever seen.
Klingon?
No, Ricochet.
Oh, Ricochet.
Like, the fact that he was talked about as potential number 1 pick and, like, top 2 or 3 guy in the same tier as Sar, that has always been insane to me. Always been insane to me. Like, I just... I wouldn't want Ricochet also for the fact that, like, people would give me crap every time he makes a bucket.
Chris Murray.
Oh, man. Did you talk about the TV deal meetings at all? Not yet. We can maybe touch upon those. I know there's something with, like, Amazon, but I'm kind of just waiting for them to, like, actually have more substance to talk about before we dive into those. You don't want Klingon and Aiton playing next to each other like Aiton and Rob Will? We already know this team is willing to do that, so... Aiton is our Cat, and Klingon is our Gobert, and Shaden is our Anthony Edwards. And Scoot is our Mike Conley. And Ant is Alexander Walker.
Turtle says he's heard Blazers may not keep both first-round picks. Thoughts on how Cronin would use the Golden State pick? Probably just trading it for a future pick or attaching it with contracts to go after someone like an actual player that's been in the league.
Who's trading a decent player for the 14th pick? And what position would it be at? I don't know.
I think you can get an okay player.
It just says, where do you guys have where on your big boards if you can share? Like 18th? Or wait, no, that's where I forget where I have them. Somewhere around 20. Chris Murray is our McDaniels. Yeah, there you go. Not Kamara. Chris Murray is our McDaniels. Because, hey, McDaniels has a brother too, and Chris Murray has a brother, so makes sense.
Also, if we go into the new calendar year in the tax, we lose our trade exceptions.
We're not going to use it anyway.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Tankathon. We already did Tankathon. Truffles. Blazers got 4th. Anyway, we're going to be live again on Thursday. We'll talk more playoffs. If there's any Blazer news, we'll talk about it. Been enjoying these live streams here in the off season. It's always fun, and we appreciate you guys hanging out. Maybe we'll do a little bit more Q&A, a little bit more talk with chat on the next stream. Is there anything else you wanted to get into, Eric?
No, thanks everyone for watching. Hope everyone has a good night. Hope to see you guys back here on Thursday.
Yep, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And I'm glad you guys like the rundown graphic as well. That's cool. So I've enjoyed doing the graphics for this show this off season. But yeah, more video content coming up. There's going to be a Scoop player review Tuesday or Wednesday, tomorrow or Wednesday, and that is let's just say like 12 hours of work has gone into that. It's basically a film breakdown on like all aspects of his game. So if you guys watch that video, I'd greatly appreciate that, because that took a lot of time, and I think you guys will enjoy it. Never done a video like that before, so stay tuned for that Scoot review. It's the reason why there hasn't been many uploads so far this offseason, is because these review videos have taken a while, but going to start rolling those out. I think I'm far enough along to start rolling those out with some regularity, so looking forward to that. Also check out the second channel for Hoops Crush. Well, I want to do something with Steven in the next week and a half that will be uploaded over there. And I dropped a video earlier today about just going over analytics for the Blazers. So if you want to hear my thoughts on where they ranked in terms of like assist percentage, which is dead last, of course, then you can go watch that video. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with us. That's a wrap for this edition of Blazers Uprise Live. We'll see you live again on Thursday. And until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.